Alright everybody, welcome back into cherry picking. Today's video, we're looking at must draft wingers for the upcoming NHL season in terms of fantasy hockey. Now training camp's already underway, preseason starting this weekend as well, so definitely we'll have some updates there. Before we get in the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's how I know if I'm doing a good job with these videos. You guys are definitely flying in the comments, letting me know if I'm doing a bad job with these, so just fire off a couple likes, the subscribe button helps us out a lot. Let's get into the video. Alright, so the first winger we're going to be looking at, probably my favorite winger when in terms of fantasy hockey this season, and it's Brady Tkachuk on the Ottawa Senators. In terms of wingers right now, at his current ADP, he's about the 6th winger off the board. You know, you have his brother Tkachuk, Kucherov, Jason Robertson, Rantanen, a couple guys that are going before him. But in bangers leagues, I think he's my top pick at this point. Out of players who scored at least 35 goals last year, he led all players, or out of those players, 100 in penalty minutes, 128 penalty minutes, and then also hits too. He had 242 hits, which is way higher than any of those top skilled guys that you're going to be seeing scoring 35 plus goals. He also had the 4th most shots in the NHL last season with 347, an absurd number, only behind McDavid, McKinnon, and then Pasternak. His shooting percentage was about 10, which is relatively what we've seen from him over his past couple seasons in the NHL. It's pretty low though for a guy who's been as skilled as he is. Guys who consistently have a ton of shots too tend to start finding the back of the net more frequently. A guy like Chris Kreider is a really good example of that. He generally had 200 plus shots, and then over the last 2 seasons just absolutely exploded with 88 goals over those 2 seasons. Now he did have 35 goals last year, Brady Tkachuk, but I think we could definitely see at least 40 goals and over 100 points this year. His brother has done it, so they're relatively similar players. I definitely can see him doing it, especially on this offense as loaded it is with the Ottawa Senators this year. So much firepower. You know, you have Stützle, Tarasenko, Josh Norris, Giroux, Batherson, Pinto. Those are the top guys, and then they're loaded on defense as well. He plays in all situations, including the first power play. You know, he gets some time on the penalty kill as well. Brady Tkachuk, an absolute slam dunk this year in terms of fantasy hockey wingers. All right, the next guy we're looking at, Alex DeBrincat, now on the Detroit Red Wings. I think this is a great spot for him to succeed this year. I think the offense will run through DeBrincat on this Detroit Red Wings team. You know, he's a true goal scorer that has over 40 goals in 2 of his NHL seasons already, and on a loaded Chicago Blackhawks team to that point as well. Last year, you know, on the Sens, he only had 27 goals. I think that's more of an anomaly than anything. He's currently about the 20th ranked winger going in fantasy hockey drafts right now. It's right around the same area as Clayton Keller. I think I'd much rather have DeBrincat with the situation he's in, on the line he's in with Lucas Raymond and Dylan Larkin. I'd also rather have him than a guy like Jeff Skinner. I think Jeff Skinner kind of overperformed. They're going similar areas in the draft as well. Last year was the first time in 4 seasons where he didn't have at least 30 goals. He also had a really low shooting percentage at about 10%. That same season where he had less than 30 goals about 4 years ago, his shooting percentage was 8%. All the other years we've seen him between the 15 and 20% year. So that's more of a common theme for Alex DeBrincat. If you're looking for a goal scorer, if you're looking for goals, this guy is an absolute steal where he is going in his ADP. All right, the next guy, Kevin Fiala on the Los Angeles Kings. You know, Fiala's going right now in about the 6th round. He finished with 72 points last year, so definitely not a terrible season by any stretch, but going in the same realm as Jamie Benn and Chris Kreider. The reason I really like Fiala this year is the Pierre-Luc Dubois signing. I think PLD will really help him. If you look at who Fiala played with last year, he didn't have a ton of time playing with Kopitar, you know, mainly on the power play, I would say, but his lead center most of the season was Philip Deneau. An awesome center, but not really an offensive option when you're looking for a guy to produce points with. I think playing with PLD will definitely help Fiala's production, whether it be in the goals department or assists, playing on a line with PLD and Arthur Kaliev. Arthur Kaliev, a pure goal scorer as well. This line could be maybe the top line by the end of the year. Kempe had 43 goals last season. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think it'll be a little bit more spread out. I think Fiala will be a beneficiary of that for sure. And I think we see Fiala back up near the 85 point range that we saw in his last season with Minnesota. So right now, you know, going in the 6th, 7th round, I think Kevin Fiala is a great pick. All right, the next guy going definitely a little bit later in drafts, Andrei Kuzmenko on the Vancouver Canucks. He's going in the 9th or 10th round right now. This guy's so skilled. It'd be silly to pass up to him at that current ADP. He didn't really get a fair chance last year as well, especially when Rick Tocchet came in. Kuzmenko was playing about 15, 16 minutes per game. I think it just has to increase. You know, there were some games last year at the latter half of the year where he was playing like 10 minutes per game. If Tocchet leaves this guy on the bench when they need a goal, like, he's just an idiot. That would be insane. He's one of the probably best goal scorers on this team apart from Elias Peterson. You know, he's 27. Last year was his rookie year. He definitely took his time in the KHL, developed, and only came to the NHL when he was really ready, and it showed last year. He had 39 goals. I think we'll see his shot total surpass 200 this year as well. He only had 143 last year, which is insane, but I think that goes hand in hand with the time he had on the ice. Wasn't really maybe trusted by the coach at that point. The line of Kuzmenko, Peterson, and Beauvillier as well, their top line heading into this season. They had the highest expected goals percentage out of any line on the Canucks last season, and you get another whole other offseason for these guys to really build this chemistry. I think they'll be flying. Kuzmenko is definitely the player to own on this line at his current ADP. You know, Peterson's going really high in draft drafts right now, and I think we'll also see his 19 power play points turn into about 25 this season. All right, another guy going a lot later in drafts, Jonathan Huberdeau. I think last season was just a really shitty season all around, obviously, for the Calgary Flames, and Huberdeau was definitely a beneficiary of that, unfortunately, for fantasy hockey owners. He's going in the same area right now as Rickard Rakell, Tarasenko, Konechny. This is a guy who had 115 points just a season ago. Last season, as I mentioned, absolute fucking disaster for this guy. 60-point dip. That was suffering his lowest point per game total in his NHL career, and this point drop-off is actually the biggest one-season decline in the cap era. So that's obviously, there's nowhere to go but up for Jonathan Huberdeau going into this season. Expectations for the Flames are also relatively low, which I think is maybe exactly what he needs to get back on track here. There's a new coach in town, you know, Sutter's out the door. You bring in an assistant, Ryan Huska, who's been an assistant with the team for about 5 years, has AHL, WHL experience as well. One of the biggest changes we saw in Huberdeau last year with the Flames was the percentage of times he started his shifts in the offensive zone. In Florida, he started 78% of his shifts in the offensive zone. Last year, almost below 60%. So he just wasn't really given a fair shot to be that point producer like he was in Florida. He also posted his lowest shooting percentage at 12% since his 2016-2017 seasons, a long time ago, and had about 100 less shots than his prior season with the Florida Panthers. So if you can get Huberdeau at this ADP and he's back up to a point per game, back up to 70, 80 points, like that's great value. He's a slam dunk pick if he can kind of attribute what we saw last year to just a shitty coaching and just a down year for the Calgary Flames. All right, the last guy we're going to be talking about, Owen Tippett on the Philadelphia Flyers. His ADP right now, 166. So going a lot later in drafts than a lot of the other guys that I've been talking about. But this Flyers team, you know, they get Sean Couturier back. Cam Atkinson should be back as well. You know, those guys will be back on the power play, which will help Owen Tippett. He only had 12 power play points last year. I think we'll see him get at least 20 this year. There's so many young guys on this Flyers team as well that deserve a better chance. Morgan Frost being one of them. And now he's playing on a line with Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, and then Owen Tippett. Like, I think that's a perfect line to get this Flyers team settled and get going on the right foot. You know, you got to trust some of your young guys to really start getting this team developed. Clayton Keller finished as the 11th best right winger last season. To think that Owen Tippett can't finish in the top 15 with the reinforcements coming back, because essentially these two teams are in a very similar spot. I would say Philadelphia probably has a little bit more skill than Arizona does. So, you know, 24 to 26 is usually where we see these players break out. I think we'll see Owen Tippett do this. Last year, led the team in expected goals for in 5-on-5. So his production hasn't even hit its tipping point on the power play. And I think this year we'll see even more points in 5-on-5. He had 27 goals last year, just under 50 points. I think we'll see him in the 60 to 70 point range this season. So going that late in drafts, I think Owen Tippett will be a great pick for your fantasy hockey. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of this year's must draft wingers. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.